You check your phone before you even get out of bed. No alarm went off. No message came in. You just checked. Why? The obvious answer is boredom or habit or addiction to the apps themselves. But the real answer is far stranger. The urge living in your thumb right now is nearly 2 million years old, and it has almost nothing to do with the phone. Picture your ancestor standing at the edge of a forest 300,000 years ago. He hears a rustle in the grass. He does not know if it is wind or a rabbit or a leopard. He cannot walk away. His brain will not let him. He has to look. That itch to look, that specific discomfort of not knowing is called an information gap. The economist George Lowenstein described it in the 1990s as a kind of mental hunger. When you sense there is something to know and you do not yet know it, your brain treats the gap itself as a problem that needs solving, not the content. The gap. Your ancestors' survival depended on closing information gaps quickly. Was that rustle dangerous? Was that fruit tree already stripped by another band of humans? Had the river changed course since the dry season? Every one of these was a small gap, and every gap, once closed, delivered a tiny hit of relief and reward. Over hundreds of thousands of years, this reward loop became wired so deep into the brain that it no longer needed real danger to fire. It just needed uncertainty. Now fast forward, your phone buzzes, you do not know what the notification says. That is an information gap. Your ancestor's brain, running on modern hardware, treats it exactly the same way it would treat a rustle in the grass. Something changed. Go check. Here is where it gets stranger. You would expect that getting an interesting message would be more rewarding than getting a boring one, but neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz found something almost the opposite when he studied dopamine, the brain's chemical messenger tied to motivation and reward. Dopamine neurons do not fire most strongly when you receive a reward. They fire most strongly when a reward is uncertain. A guaranteed treat barely moves the needle. An unpredictable one sends the signal soaring. Read that again. Uncertainty is the fuel, not the payoff. This is why pulling down to refresh your feed feels almost identical to pulling the handle on a slot machine. You do not know what is underneath. It might be nothing. It might be something great. Your brain cannot tell in advance, and that is exactly the condition under which dopamine fires hardest. The psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered this principle decades before smartphones existed, using pigeons instead of people. He built a box with a lever, press it, and sometimes a pigeon received food, sometimes not, on no fixed pattern. Pigeons on this unpredictable schedule, called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Pigeons who were rewarded every single time. Predictable reward creates a calm animal. Unpredictable reward creates an obsessed one. You are not a pigeon, but your nervous system runs on the same ancient machinery, and every app on your phone was built, whether its designers admit it or not, on Skinner's box. The notification does not tell you what is inside. The scroll does not tell you when something interesting will appear. The gap stays open, and your thumb keeps moving to close it. Think about how strange this would look to your ancestor. He spent his entire life trying to close information gaps because closing them kept him alive. Knowing where the water was, knowing which plants were poison, knowing if a threat was approaching. Every gap closed was one less way to die. You are not closing gaps to survive. You are closing gaps that were manufactured specifically to never fully close. The article ends, but there is another one below it. The message is read, but a new one might arrive any second. There is no forest edge, no rustle, no leopard. There is only the feeling of one, replayed thousands of times a day, on a 5-inch screen. Here is the twist that should genuinely unsettle you. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a meaningful gap and a manufactured one. It does not have a setting for real versus fake uncertainty. Anthropologist Sarah Bluffer Hrdy has written about how deeply human cognition evolved around social information, specifically tracking who is trustworthy, who is a threat, who might help you, and who might not. For nearly all of human history, almost every piece of unpredictable information you encountered was socially or physically relevant to staying alive. There was no category for uncertainty that meant nothing, so your brain never developed a filter for it. This is why checking your phone rarely feels like a choice. You are not weak and you are not uniquely undisciplined. You are running 2 million-year-old software on hardware that was never updated to expect infinite meaningless information gaps delivered every 4 seconds by something in your pocket. Consider what this means for the moments you feel most powerless against the pull. Late at night, lying in bed, you tell yourself just one more scroll. That sentence has been spoken in some form by nearly everyone who has ever owned a smartphone. It is not a failure of willpower. It is a very old brain circuit doing exactly the job it was built to do in an environment it was never built for. Does this mean you are simply a puppet of your evolutionary history? Not entirely. Understanding the mechanism is the first step toward interrupting it. The information gap only pulls at you when it stays open. Turning off notifications does not remove your curiosity. It removes the artificial gaps being opened for you dozens of times an hour. Checking your messages at set times, rather than the instant they arrive, converts an unpredictable reward schedule into a predictable one. And predictable rewards, as Skinner's pigeons showed, create calm rather than compulsion. There is something almost humbling in realizing that the leopard in the grass and the notification on your lock screen are, to your nervous system, the same event. Different stakes, same circuit. Your ancestor could not ignore the rustle because ignoring it might mean death. You cannot ignore the buzz because some deep ancient part of you still believes, just for a fraction of a second, that it might matter just as much. It doesn't, almost always. But your brain was built long before anyone could design a device specifically to exploit the one system you never needed to defend, because for nearly the entire span of human existence, nothing dishonest was on the other side of the gap. Tonight, before you fall asleep, you will probably check your phone one more time. No alarm will have gone off, no message will necessarily be waiting. You will just check, and now you know why.